Hello there, welcome back to Nerd.World Films and the continuation of the Friday the 13th series coverage. We're up to part 8, Friday the 13th, Jason Takes Manhattan. Right off the bat, gonna say, the title, ridiculous. It's as cheesy a horror title as you're ever gonna get. And there are several things about it that make it extra cheesy. I mean, not just the cheesiness factor in general, but also Jason Takes Manhattan. Jason is barely ever in Manhattan in this film, which in and of itself is peculiar. He spends most of his time on a boat, killing people on a boat on its way to Manhattan. The film once again sees the return of Kane Hodder to the role of Jason freaking Voorhees, a role he was born to play. He is the greatest Jason. He is. This is not the best film in the franchise either. It suffers on numerous levels, starting with its ridiculous title, its lack of budget to actually accomplish the things it wanted to accomplish, like for example actually being in Manhattan, which is not a cheap area of the world to film in, as a result of which the film spends all of its time aboard the boat because that was a cheaper setting. They actually had so little time and so little money, they only had like a couple of days to actually film in Manhattan as a result of the pathetic budget that this movie had for its filming. Although interviews with Kane Hodder that I've occasionally seen and come across, usually on the special features of the DVDs, he actually talks about how in a lot of ways this was the best film for him to have made. He has such fond memories of it. I mean, the other movies like number 7, he got a building dropped on him and nearly died. He got set on fire. This movie is not so bad, really. He got to, in his words, I believe I'm quoting him precisely, he got to feel like a rock star because he's walking around Manhattan. Obviously, you can't just close central Manhattan, so they tried to barricade people, keep them at bay, but obviously all the fans were there, they knew it was filming, and just by giving them a simple look, just turn it ahead, he was getting roaring applause and adulation. They basically made him feel amazing, and good for him. I mean, he was really bringing that role to life, and he does a really good damn job of it. I'm not actually massively keen on the appearance of Jason in this film. He looks very wet throughout most of the film, and you do wonder why the hell he doesn't just dry off. But he's basically very moist all the way through the film, very rarely being dry, which must have been uncomfortable for Kane Hodder to film, being basically perpetually wet all the way through filming. Or at least covered in gel or whatever they covered him. It was probably just water, which will meant he was cold, he was wet, he was uncomfortable. Can't imagine it was a nice feeling. But with all that said, let's get into this. And again, as always, disclaimer, there will be spoilers, but I will try to keep them to a bare minimum. Also, little addendum, Kelly Hu is in this movie, and I had such a crush on Kelly Hu when I was younger. I remember she used to be in a TV series called Nash Bridges. My God, she's a beautiful woman. And of course she was the sorceress in The Scorpion King, so I'm doubly jealous because she got to Dwayne Johnson got to spend time with her, and she got to spend time with Dwayne Johnson. I'm really torn on my feelings on this issue. Where was I up to? The start of this movie. Right. Again, disclaimers. From here on, there will actually be spoilers for the storyline, but I will, as much as possible, try to limit it and keep it to a bare minimum. So I do encourage you to watch this film and evaluate it for yourself, and don't just take my humble opinion for it. The movie begins with the obligatory scene of trying to bring Jason back from the dead once again. As we know, at the end of the last movie and the movie before that, he ended up drowned in the lake, chained to the bottom of the lake by a dead man. So he's still there for some reason, and now there's a power cable running to the ever-changing coastline of this effing lake. Where the fuck is this lake? That nothing's ever the goddamn same. Who keeps investing in property here? I get it, it's probably low because there's a serial fucking killer in the area, but really, Really? Who is doing that? Who's actually building shit here? Who would reopen the fucking camp? Getting off topic. Anyway. So, a boat crawling up. Well, they're dumping exposition into the ocean and onto us about how, you know, well, this is Camp Crystal Lake. This is where, you know, that Jason Voorhees guy killed all those people. And this guy's trying to put his girlfriend in the mood by telling her about all these dead teenagers who died while they were fucking. Anyway, so he's clearly succeeding. Realism for you. And he's telling her about all the previous events, all the times that people have been killed. And then he hears something or some shit, which is just a load of shit. But he's thrown the anchor over and they want to secure the boat. That anchor gets caught in the aforementioned power cable. The power cable, the electricity brings him back from the dead because he's a fucking zombie. He's a zombie. Or he's something. He is something, which we'll get to in the next movie, which is the sort of canonical, unfortunately, answer as to what he probably actually is, which is in the next film. But anyway, moving along. Here we have, he comes back from the electricity and he climbs up onto the boat, but not before the dumbass boyfriend on this boat puts on a hockey mask and scares his girlfriend into believing that, you know, Jason's back. Because again, that really, being terrified puts a girl in the mood, fellas. It does. Take my word for it. Keep going. It's a brilliant idea, idiots. Anyway, aside from this dumb sort of plot where she is apparently still in the mood after he's pretended to be a serial killer for a few minutes and pretends to stab her, by the way, with a fake knife, which looks very much like a fake knife being stabbed into a pillow, which is clearly what it fucking was. And yeah, that's definitely not a mood kill at all. God damn this movie. Anyway, then the real Jason comes back with his nice spear gun that he managed to pick up along the way. A spear gun which has these really weird rubbery hoses on it that kind of make it look like it's got intestines stuck to it after he stabs the guy and pulls it out because they're covered in blood and you think there's intestines. You actually watch it. They're not, they're on it. I don't know what the fuck those are. Now, I don't own a boat and I've never been in the Navy and I don't use a harpoon, so there are many things that I'm not factoring in here as to why I don't know what the fuck those are. But I really don't know what the fuck those are. If someone wants to actually comment why the hell a spear gun has these rubbery hoses on it. At first I thought maybe there was something like compression or, you know, something along those lines, because a lot of them use compressed air, but they're very loose pipes. They don't look pressurized. Anyway, I figure they're just there to look like intestines but not be intestines to probably get through the MPAA. Incidentally, as I mentioned in the previous video, the MPAA in America, BBFC in the United Kingdom, were very much coming down on these movies over the violence and the nudity, which this movie again cuts down. Ironically, this movie cut down the gore and the bloodshed before the MPAA even saw it. And ironically, again, they didn't have as much of a problem with it by this point, so actually they could have upped the gore, but there was no alternative scenes to actually put in, or very few of them, not as many as there were with the previous movies, meaning this film cut for no good reason. Now, in addition to that, Jason's now killed the boy. The girl escapes, good for her, but typical female character in movie has to be a cliche. I'm surprised she didn't put a white shirt on and go in the shower first. She stumbles about on the deck and she hides rather than fucking jump over and swim away. It's Jason. It's only so much effort this fucking lazy serial killer bastard's gonna put into chasing you. If she'd have really run, Jason wouldn't have chased her. At least she might have stood a fighting chance. Maybe he'd have got distracted by something shiny or something, who knows. But he basically goes, I didn't hear anyone jump in the water. So he starts looking around. He doesn't actually say that, but it's clear. He's not as stupid as we think, clearly, because he registers that he's not heard someone in the water. He registers not heard someone swimming away. He can't see anyone on the shore, so she's got to still be on the boat. So he starts looking for where she's hiding. He finds her, and very, very slowly and mercifully for the audience, kills this shrieking Violet in the slowest way possible, almost arcing back to Friday the 13th Part 3 with basically putting something up to the camera very, very slowly, and obviously meant for 3D, although that's not what they were going for. It's a little off center in this case, but generally speaking that's what it kind of feels like. It just seems to take him forever, and once again he's stabbing a pillow, but the girl's dead. He then closes it and, I don't know, goes back in the fucking water or some shit. We then skip ahead to a bigger boat, and we find out that Camp Crystal Lake is actually connected to the ocean, which should make it more of a fjord than a lake, I suppose. We've had no evidence that it's a tidal lake or a saltwater lake before up until this point. We always assumed it was Camp Crystal Lake, not Camp Crystal Fjord. Anyway, so it's an open ocean lake, or it has some kind of connection. Maybe it's canals, but it's a pretty big ship that's going to be going through a fucking canal here, unless it's connected to the goddamn Panama Canal. Maybe the Suez. Anyway, so they're going along, they're arguing, all the people on this boat, and you're getting introduced to the various assortments of characters and back characters, including the main hero, who's a bit of a dick to his dad, who's the captain of the boat, trying to pass on his legacy. You got a school teacher, and you've also got this guy and his niece. You've got the bitchy kid. You got a lot of drugs again in this film. You got again, you get into a lot of cliche characters. Unlike some of the previous entries, that at least like number 6 had tried to develop a lot of his characters, number 7 at least had a couple of pretty decently developed characters. I don't think many of these characters are as well developed. Now, they do make some effort to give them backstories, they do make effort to give them distinct personalities, so you don't have really a lot of clones of idiot dumb teenagers taking drugs and having premarital sex to get murdered. There isn't quite as much of that, but they're still not complicated people. And one of them, actually, he's the older man, he's the uncle of the hero. I think he gets a bit of a bad rap. I don't think he's as bad as people say he is. He's a bit of a dick, yes. And basically, his niece has a fear of drowning. She can't swim, she's only going in the water. One of the other bitch girls pushes her in the water because she's jealous of the attention she's getting or some shit, or because she walked in on them taking drugs while she was looking for her dog and thinks she's going to dob her in, and she thinks, oh, well, the way to stop that from happening is I'll humiliate her and push her into the water. Boom. Stupidity. And basically that's all because her uncle took her out on a lake once, Camp Crystal Lake, as we will later determine in the film, and he pushed her straight in, and she believes that she saw a young deformed boy trying to pull her under. We'll later learn that was Jason Voorhees, who was just apparently chilling out under the fucking water as a boy. What the fuck? Anyway, so we move on. She's rescued, and by this point Jason's made his way onto this ship, and it's now set sail, and it's heading towards Manhattan, because this is Jason Takes Manhattan. Remember, by this point we have to remember that. Keep telling yourself that Jason Takes Manhattan. Yeah, so we've got a lot of cliches on this. We've got the hot girl who's on drugs trying to seduce Kelly Hu and to be more like her, who's a bit of a pencil pusher. They're perving on the boxer guy, who's also a really awesome character, I should point out. There are a few good ones here, and he's a pretty decent character. Again, a lot of them are cliches, but he's a pretty decent character, and he does a lot of boxing and stuff like that. Although I think this seems cheating, because he basically, the opponent got distracted looking up at the overhead window where the two girls were looking in, and while he did that, the main protagonist boxer guy punched his lights out. Personally, I call foul, but that's me. I suppose he shouldn't have got distracted. Hot girl's got a crush on this guy. It's not really relevant to the story in any way. Now, these are all classmates, basically on what I think is a school fucking trip. Everything's kind of convoluted here. Jason, by this point, is going around. You've got a rock star chick who's making a music video. You've got a guy with camera who's actually got a thing for hot girl. It's so stupid. And then she gets killed by her guitar by Jason, who somehow he follows her down on the deck, and he teleports around while she was trying to do it, because this film really leans into the teleporting thing that he's sort of vaguely done in the previous movies. Now he's really into his teleporting by this point. So she gets killed. Camera guy, her cameraman, who's got a crush on Hot Girl, is off filming Hot Girl pretending to seduce their teacher into giving her a good grade, because she's not actually done the work. And before he managed to get to grips with himself and go, I am your teacher, young lady, I'll have you drummed out of school for this, the camera boy had managed to film it. Now in reality, if I was that teacher at that moment when the kid was like, I ain't giving you the tape, I'd be like, you're gonna get your leg, I'm gonna break your fucking legs and I'm gonna take that tape, you little dickhead. You have no evidence. He'd have just taken it off him. He was bigger than him, he was a little nerd boy. He'd have just taken it off him. I'm just sorry, it's just what he would have done. He wouldn't have let that kid take that tape to blackmail him into giving the evil drug-taking bitch a passing grade. But don't worry, she doesn't live much longer. Basically, Jason starts to rummage around the ship, killing different people. At this point, he was actually hiding in the room next door, and he comes in and he kills bitch woman at this point. Camera guy toddles off after trying to basically tell her, I've always had the thing for you, and is there any chance? And she's like, no. At this point, Jason decides to do his usual thing and he kills the people who are steering the fucking ship. Luckily, it's been established that the ship's captain's son, who knows what he's doing sort of, is on board. He overrides the older man who tries to say, I know I'm in charge, young man. And he's like, no, I'm in charge. You want to live, you listen to me now. You got hot-headed group of boys who don't even matter. They go off to try and kill Jason because they know someone's on board, killing everyone by this point because they're starting to find the bodies. I am skipping ahead a little bit here because quite frankly, you're missing out a section of this film where he just aimlessly kills people and doesn't progress the story or anything in any way. It's really just whittling down the cast to get to the core players in this film. So we carry on, and eventually we're down to the main ones. They have gone looking for him. They find dead rock chick, they find dead bitch woman, they find Kelly Who, and then and also I said no, you know what, not glossing over Kelly Who's death, because Kelly Who's death's kind of interesting, because not that the death itself is particularly remarkable, it ain't. What is interesting is how she's not smart enough as a movie character to open a fucking door to escape out of a room, instead standing right in the middle of the room, screaming, spinning round in a circle, looking around the room for Jason, who, bear in mind, she has a full 360-degree view of this room. He isn't there. He's not there. But then he is there, and he's gone again. He's teleporting around the fucking room. There is no way around it. He's teleporting, and he's fucking with her. And eventually she tries to run out. Instead of running out of the door that she just came in, which she's clearly no longer near, she goes to a door that's locked and gets herself killed. That's pretty much how she dies. But the main bit about that is interesting is Jason fucking Voorhees teleporting about the place. After that, we move on to, as I said, the various different extras dying on this ship, of which there are many who Jason starts to kill. This probably got pretty high body counts in this movie. So eventually we reach the point where they're thinking to themselves, right, we gotta get the ship to land. They try to send out a distress. Jason sabotages the transmitter for some reason, and but eventually they do make it to Manhattan. Would be the skipping ahead part, because as I said, there's not. It's fucking boring. It's aboard a ship. Where is Manhattan in the Jason Takes Manhattan fucking movie? I'm sorry, I'm skipping past it because it's just him killing people on a fucking boat who don't matter to the story. They get to Manhattan, everything's great. They're like, yay, there's a few survivors. There's a teacher, there's the old guy, there's the heroine girl, there's the heroic guy, and there's the boxer guy. And the dog, of course. So they're then mugged by Manhattan thugs, who then take the young girl, the guy's niece, away, even though he does try to protest and defend her for a split second, but then he's threatened with a knife and he cowers with a gun. He cowers, he forgets, he goes like, fuck it, we'll go find the cop. And they take her away to basically essay her. And it's one of the few times in this movie you're hoping Jason turns up, and lo and behold, he teleports right in there and stabs the fucker in the back with a syringe while he's trying to essay the girl. And then gets shot to shit because he's a zombie and doesn't die by the other mugger, who he then proceeds to kill. She by this point gets away, but she's been drugged, so it's difficult. But the group split up to try and find the cop. They eventually come back, they found the cop, get to the police car. Jason then teleports in, kills the cop, then teleports again into the road, way down the road in front of the police car. She then runs him over, good on her, One of the few times, actually, I believe in the movie that Jason was not portrayed by Kane Hodder, because they wouldn't allow him to do that stunt, because they wouldn't risk the main actor, the main guy portraying Jason, to be run over by a car, even though he's a stuntman, whatever. But then she hallucinates the little boy, who she's periodically, by the way, been hallucinating all over through this movie, because she's possibly a little crazy. And she still runs him over, even though he's clearly not there, and crashes the car, so they don't get away. They then get out, they tell her uncle he's a dick, and fuck you, we're going to leave you here to die, so he stays there to die while they run off. He runs away from Jason, looking over his shoulder all the time, runs into this building, and then when he gets in the building, Jason's already in the fucking building, because he teleported inside, throws him through the fucking window, teleports back down into the street, because he didn't have to. Jason doesn't run for nobody, so he teleports down, kills him in the street with some toxic waste, because that's a thing in New York apparently. And then he goes after, and then we get into the scene which is really good, and probably the best death in this entire movie, which is possibly an homage to Killer Clowns from Outer Space in its sort of stupidity. He basically ends up fighting him, because Kane Hodder's a big guy and he's covered in padding. In the close-up shots, he actually told the actor, or the young lad, just punch me, I won't feel it, it's fine, go to town. And then when it came to Kane Hodder fighting the Marquette at the end, and he has to knock its block off, he does so, and he hits it with proper gusto and hits that head right down into the street, takes the kid's head off. By this point, there's only like a couple of them left alive, because the teacher's dead, she's been killed again. And then there's these two, and they get down into the sewers, and that's when they learn that the sewers in New York are flooded with toxic waste every evening, because everyone knows that. That's a normal thing in every big city in the United States. For the rest of the world, if you didn't know that, they flush out the sewers with toxic waste every night. Oh, okay. And we get a bit of a Jason chase scene. He kills the sewer guy. He's coming after them, possibly teleporting. And they're trying to escape out of a manhole, skipping to the end bit. This is where the toxic waste comes flooding in. And this is the insane fucking part of this movie. Jason talks. Now I'm going to actually say, he actually talks in the next movie more. And we'll get to that in Jason Goes to Hell. It's a bit different in that. But he talks in this film. He says, Mama, or some shit like that, and there's all this water gushing out of his mouth, which, by the way, Kane Hodder did on demand by drinking loads of water and basically sicking it back up, which is gross but looks spectacular. The scene's ridiculous. The toxic waste washes over him, and as he drowns and dies, he actually reverts back to being basically the corpse of the little boy that he drowned in the lake originally. What that's about, don't know, but maybe the explanation in the number 9 movie kind of lends itself to an explanation, maybe, possibly. Now I'm gonna wrap up this video quickly, because I don't like this film and it's not the best in the franchise. It's kind of plodding. The characters, although some of them are really, really good. There are some really good characters, there's some underestimated characters. Kane Hodder is fantastic as always, and generally the film is, although not great, it does have a fantastic scene that I have glossed over actually, where Kane Hodder, as I mentioned earlier, was in the main square in New York, and he's basically walking after them, and he has this fight-ish with a few music listening to youths, and he kicks their stereo and he shows them his face and they all run away. It's pathetic, it's stupid. The whole scene is cool, but it's the only fucking scene pretty much. It actually looks like it's in New York. Every other scene was in back alley anywhereville, United States or Canada or even fucking Mexico. Doesn't matter, it could have been anywhere. And this is the only scene that's genuinely in Manhattan. This is Jason Takes Fucking Manhattan. The funny scene where he's looking up at a billboard because it's got a hockey mask on it. Oh god, don't get me started. Anyway, wrapping up. This film is getting my lowest score in the franchise. It's getting 3 out of 6 because it's not great, it's not easy to watch, it's ridiculously titled, the title's long, it has almost nothing to do with Manhattan. I would advise you watch it, but try not to laugh at the scene where Jason cries for his mama at the end of the movie, and try to make it all the way through. If you're a completionist, again, it's worth a watch. It is a good film because it has some good characters in it, but the story, the whole way it's been filmed is bollocks. It's not a strong film or a strong entry into the Friday the 13th franchise. It's probably the weakest one of the first 8 movies, and 3 out of 6. But as this video was really dragged on, and ironically, worst film in the franchise, I've probably turned into my longest video on the franchise, and I'm trying not to ramble. I really am. I'm trying not to ramble. I could go into more details about the kills, but really there's no point, because they're just background people who die. They're there to die. They're there to do nothing else. And that's the same in a lot of films. But this film's making some effort to prop up these main characters, so they're the ones whose story you really need to follow, and everything else is kind of just filler. 3 out of 6, all the same. But it would get a higher score perhaps if it was actually in Manhattan and wasn't as just all on a fucking boat. If it was Jason on a boat, Jason Kills on the Ocean, it would have been a great thing. They could have done more with it, but many of the characters just feel very weak and soft and pointless, and are just there to die, and that lets the film down a lot. I mean, a hell of a lot. Otherwise, it's actually a really good film and does have some good characters, but like ones you like the Rockstar Girl die very early on, and you're just left with the leftovers.
I just want to take this moment to thank you for watching that video. If you liked what you saw, please check out my social links in the description box below to Instagram and Twitter and others, and also is down there a link to my Patreon page where you can support this channel and the others as I try to grow this franchise and do this more regularly. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, thank you for watching, and bye bye.